I think I have a genuine feel for what China is like. Resilience is very apt in terms of describing China and the Chinese. I wanted to be was a journalist who told the truth. My name is David Ferguson. I come from Scotland. I've been in China for almost 16 years now. I work for Foreign Languages Press and I am the Honorary Chief English Editor in Foreign Languages Press, which publishes books in foreign languages for foreign audiences presenting China to the world. Time we'll replace ecological with eco-environmental. So we don't completely get rid of the concept of ecology. If you check that expression, you'll almost certainly find if there's 1,000 hits on Google, you'll find that 999 of them are Chinese sources. So we really have to be conscious around ecological civilization. Because all I'm doing is going through other people's work and correcting it. I've stayed in the job for 10 years. If you think about it from a superficial level, it might appear boring. Actually find very interesting about the job is that I don't just have to correct stuff. I actually have to work out why it's wrong. And that's not as easy as you might think. It means trying to understand what the message is and trying to find a way of expressing that message as well as possible in English. And that's a very different job from correcting grammar and spelling. Paul White, he was my colleague with Foreign Languages Press. He was my immediate predecessor in the English department, and he and I worked together on the first volume of The Governance of China. I've worked on all 4 volumes now of The Governance of China. The first volume I worked together with my colleague Paul White, who sadly has now died. Volumes 2, 3 and 4, I was the only English language editor. The advantage of that was it made it easier to achieve consistency. The disadvantage was that it represented a huge workload. And these are big books, 600 pages. I had to go through them 4, even 5 times. So it was a very heavy workload. There are a lot of very difficult things that you have to do in terms of the translation and the editing work. And the first problem is at a more conceptual level. It's that a lot of the material was written by Chinese, in Chinese, and directed towards a Chinese audience. And that means that from a conceptual perspective, it's not really designed to address a Western audience. Very, very big gap between Chinese political discourse and a Western political discourse. So the first thing that you have to do is try to find ways of actually turning the message from what is essentially a Chinese cultural message into a Western cultural message. That's a really difficult thing to do because at the same time you have to stay true to the original content. I joined China.org at the end of April 2008, and then in May 2008, start of May, there was the terrible earthquake in Wenchuan. And before I'd gone down to Sichuan, I'd read stories about how very large numbers of the military personnel who were trying to get into the mountains to save people. I remember going to visit a sports stadium in Mianzhu. So there were hundreds, maybe thousands of families camping in tents or whatever makeshift accommodation they had on the grounds of this sports stadium. And there were lots and lots of children. And I was walking around doing my reporting. For a lot of them, I guess I was probably the first Uyghur they'd ever seen. I was the first foreigner. I have a photo which is really, really interesting because I'm in the photo with a group of children and adults in the background, and everybody in the photo is smiling and laughing. And these were people who had just been through a terrible experience. And it just shows how resilient people are, that they're capable of overcoming something like that. Resilience is a characteristic which I think is very apt in terms of describing China and the Chinese. I came to China for the first time. I really didn't know anything about the country at all, which I think was very common in the West at that time. I've just completed a book on rural revitalization based on the Gansu experience. That was really, really interesting because I saw the poverty alleviation work in real life. I saw the genuine transformation that's taken place in China and in Gansu as a result of poverty alleviation. China is already planning that second centenary goal and what it involves. You look at the Western system, in contrast, politicians are looking at tomorrow's media headlines. They don't look further than that, and they've got a great big team of people whose main job is not to look at what the country is going to be like in 5 or 10 or 20 years. It's to look at tomorrow's media headlines and make sure that they're positive. A very fundamental difference in the systems. Being a Westerner, being an English speaker, I could watch both versions of events. And the story that was being told in China was completely different from the story that was being told in the West. I could see that the Chinese story was accurate and true. And I actually got quite angry about it because the Western story was so misleading. I wanted to be was a journalist who told the truth. The US and the UK are arguing in a language that is their native language. They're criticizing China to an English-speaking audience using their native language. And China has to respond to that. China is trying to talk to people from another culture using a language that is not China's language, and that makes it difficult. So one of the things that we can do, not just me, myself, one of the things that we can do is Westerners who are in China, who are supportive to China, we can actually play a much better role in terms of arguing China's case, rather than presenting China's case, in terms of actually arguing, going head to head, going toe to toe with critics.
I like to cycle. I like to cycle when I'm back home in Edinburgh too, but I find Beijing is a lot easier for a number of reasons. One, because it's nice and flat. Pretty much every road, you can see the cycle lanes here.
It's a book which I wrote in 2015, and it's a book about the work that's being done at state level and at city level to improve the environment in Beijing. So I enjoyed writing this book. It gave me lots of insights into all the work that's being done in terms of cleaning the air, in terms of cleaning the water, in terms of waste disposal, and in terms of greening the city. One of the things that I really enjoy is cycling along the riverbanks as part of the greening process in Beijing.
Hi, Frank.
I've been here long enough and I've seen enough that I think I have a genuine feel for what China is like. So yes, I very definitely have plans to present China in a positive way, to tell positive stories about China, and also to confront China's critics and force them into actually justifying their position. For me now, I have two homes. I feel very much at home in China, I enjoy being here. I like Chinese people, I like Chinese culture, I like Chinese food, I like the country. So I'm very much at home here. I'm lucky I now have two homes.